right?
Yes.
That means the makeup of the man, the psyche, the
ego.
identity, the ego, the self-esteem, the self-image, and so on. And so if that software is hurt, if that software is infected, the computer doesn't operate well.
It doesn't operate as it should. You get? And that is why you have many boys running around in big man pants.
Yeah.
They're boys.
They're boys. They never really grew up.
The software
so growing up
is
also
not updated.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's the apt description, because you know, in the current world today, you buy a computer and we're all connected to the internet. They assume that we're all connected to the internet. If your computer is not connected to the internet, it becomes obsolete. The software doesn't necessarily work as it's supposed to be.
Drivers.
The drivers. They need to be updated. Even your phone, by the way, they need to be updated all the time. And so the analogy here is that as long as the software, the manhood is hurt, the drivers are not updated, and there's a virus in there, and the virus is not being resolved, and so on. So you have a wounded warrior walking around.
Yes.
Why are you calling this guy a warrior in the first place?
Because that is the beauty of manhood.
Yeah.
To be a warrior.
Yeah.
To fight.
By default, by nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
To fight.
Yeah.
To defend.
To conquer.
To
stand on your mountain,
yes.
You know.
So that
you remember that story of in the Bible? There's a guy.
Caleb.
Is not Caleb. Okay, Caleb is another one. But there's a guy who fought until his blade stuck to his arm, defending a field of lentils.
Abinadab, I think.
Right.
Killed 90 people in one day.
Yeah.
Until his hand almost
and the blade. I mean, his hand and the blade is one and the same thing.
Exactly.
Fused into
Terminator kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I use the word wounded to speak to vulnerability.
Yeah.
And warrior to speak to identity.
So there are two things here that we're looking at.
It's a dichotomy. Every man is dichotomous. By dichotomous, I'm talking about there are two sides of you.
Yeah.
There is a side of you that is crying, and then there's a side of you that is hungry to keep going at life. How does a man reconcile these two things in their lives? How does a man acknowledge that the pain that they're going through is not weakness?
There you go.
Because you see, as men, as a warrior, you do not want to seem weak.
Yeah.
As a warrior, you do not want to seem feeble or fickle.
Yeah.
That is the worst thing that a man can, like anything that makes a man feel weak.
Yeah. The other day, last week,
his identity.
Last week you had Colin Powell. I don't know if you saw his speech. There's a speech that has been circulating. Colin Powell passed away in which month is this? This month, actually. He passed away in October 2021. And there's a speech that was going around
about trust,
about leadership
and trust. Yes,
and trust. And he was saying that there's a time you do not want your followers to see that you are afraid, but you are afraid, because he's talking about inspiring the guys that you are tired, but you're showing them that you can go one extra mile. But then it begs the question: is this woundedness something that men should, quote unquote, accept?
So it's a thing. If you accept that you're wounded, then you can get help.
Now, before we can go even to the woundedness, the dichotomy, I believe when you talk about the dichotomy, you also, there's a book actually, I don't know if I've shared with you, there's a book called The Tender Warrior.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that. Eldridge
did Wild at Heart, but this is Stu Weber, Tender Warrior. You talk about the dichotomy of a man, which means that there is a part that is soft,
yes,
caring, and then there's a part that is the warrior. And you can find these two aspects even in Jesus Christ himself. He is a tender warrior, as in he takes care of sheep
and conquers
tenderly, but then also at the same time he has the power to conquer. Is that the dichotomy we're also referring to?
Yes, that's the dichotomy.
The man is not just stone-faced 24/7.
Because it's that tenderness that allowed him to die.
Yeah.
If it was all about the conqueror, he would not have gone to the cross.
Yeah.
But for him to achieve his mandate,
Yeah.
tenderness is part of his manhood.
You know, when you bring the idea of tenderness and the cross, is such a powerful metaphor, because the cross represents his suffering, represents his sacrifice. So the tenderness of a man also represents those things.
But think about what he said.
Yeah.
No one takes my life from me. I lay it down of my own
Accord.
accord.
Yeah.
That is tenderness.
Yeah.
Like choosing to be
Soft. Yeah.
so that the bigger cause.
Yeah.
So as a man, we're talking about, for example, you're having an argument with your wife.
Yeah.
And she's saying
She
certain
slaps you on the
things, and
face
she
or
slaps
something.
you get. And you're like, you know, before you react,
Yeah.
think and ask yourself, what does it take away from you?
Do I become a warrior right now, or do I?
Does it take anything away from you to
Yeah.
let this one go, to let her have this one?
Yeah.
So that you can win the bigger war. And what is the bigger war? The bigger war is keeping your family together.
Yeah. And it's not just necessarily slapping by the way. It's not necessarily just being violent. There are ways you can be a warrior.
Women's biggest weapons are words.
Yeah. Or lack of words.
Or lack of words.
Right. The silent treatment and so on.
Oh, that's worse. Today I was having a meeting and someone said, for me, and this was a lady, she said, for me, instead of silent treatment, you beat me.
Right.
Beat me, and then I know, this is resolved.
Yeah.
But silent treatment, as in, it's a war without a battle.
Yeah.
That's the worst kind of thing.
Yeah. So the woman wants, because we're going back to the woman again, we're going to be going back and forth and so on. The woman wants to experience your gentleness, your tenderness at some point, but that doesn't take away your warriorness.
She needs
right?
you to be firm.
She needs you to be firm. And so your tenderness is towards her, right? Your warriorness
Is for her.
is for her.
And for your family.
And for the family, and maybe even for the community at large and so on.
It's for the cause.
For the cause.
Of your life.
Right.
You get mandate.
So the manhood here has the software of the tenderness and the warriorness.
Yes.
And it's also exemplified in the mandate of the man.
Yes.
Right.
So, you see, one of the interesting things is that verse which says Jesus wept.
Yeah.
Now, the context of that is that he was going to his friend had died.
Yeah.
Then he showed up.
Yeah.
And then he saw people cry.
Yeah.
And then he wept.
Yeah.
And people have tried to understand, was he weeping because of his friend? Because in the Bible says, wow.
Yeah.
They saw him crying and they said, wow.
Yeah. He loved him.
See how much he loved his friend. But then the dead man's sister said, if you had been here, this man wouldn't have died. So now get this. After he cried, he prayed. And then a voice came from heaven. And the people said it was as if it was thunder or something like that. And then he said that voice was for your good. Because for him, he knew what he was going to do. That this man was going to come back to life. But he said that voice was for your good. How did it come to that place? Him crying. I think that sometimes a man taking the low road, the higher road by allowing to go to bend low, then you serve. And when you serve, it's for the good.
So you talk in humility here. You're talking about being basically a race to the bottom.
Yes.
And the problem we have in society today is that men are always encouraged to race to the top and to be the best and to be competitive and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Corporate ladder, who's talking about climbing down?
Yeah. We're always being admonished to, and you can see a lot of woundedness that is going on.
Oh yes.
Men wounding one another, climbing the corporate ladder, and even women can be thrown into the mix in there. And
that's a crazy mix there.
Yeah.
So you see how woundedness within a warrior, woundedness in a warrior is not a bad thing necessarily, especially if there is humility to acknowledge that one
I'm wounded.
Is wounded.
I've been shot. Man down.
Man down.
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah.
I'm struggling in this.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with substance abuse. I'm
Yeah.
struggling with pornography.
Yeah.
I'm broke.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
Can someone help me?
You know, the issue there, my friend, is this, that some of these things that wound men are things that, for lack of a better word, are kind of embarrassing. That the wounded warrior doesn't necessarily, needing to exemplify that he is a warrior, doesn't want to show weakness or doesn't want to show embarrassment by acknowledging I'm wounded. I'm struggling with porn. I'm struggling with looking at other women and lusting over other women. That's part of the equation of woundedness, right?
It is. But this is the thing. Unless it's acknowledged, it can't be fixed.
Yeah.
So here you are, living with a wolf in your house. And the wolf here are the things men struggle with.
Yeah.
But because it's unheard of that a man should have a wolf in his house, you don't want anyone to come around. But every day, the wolf is getting bigger.
And bigger.
It's getting bigger.
Yeah.
And before you know it, it eats you.
Yeah.
But you see, when you have the humility to say, help needed,
Yeah.
that is when you will discover the power of the regiment.
Oh. Men locking arms.
Coming together.
Yeah.
Leaving no man behind.
Yeah.
You know that philosophy of the American
Yeah,
army?
yeah.
No man left behind.
Very beautiful philosophy.
However wounded he is,
Yeah.
dead or alive,
No one is
left behind.
So
But that's the point. That's the point.
That's a very powerful concept, because it gives an individual man the trust, the confidence that no matter what happens to me,
Someone got me.
Someone has got my back,
Yeah.
you know. And that's the thing that we need in our society today. Would you say that in this day and in this age, when we are having very many wounded warriors, would you say that men have each other's backs? Would you say that no man is left behind is a philosophy that is being exemplified today?
To an extent, yes. To the extent that, honestly, individually, there are people who are loyal. And men tend to be loyal, and men value loyalty above everything else.
Yeah.
So that part of loyalty makes people be there for each other, but at an individual level. But as a community, we tend to leave our warriors on the battlefront, even when they are still alive. Someone said, for example, that the church is the only army that kills its wounded.
It's true. It's actually very true. There's this concept. This is going to be very controversial.
Let it be.
It's going to be very controversial.
Because
There's this concept, by the way, that I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's biblical, but there's a wounded warrior. Say a man has slept with his girlfriend before marriage. What happens to that wounded warrior? You are meant to face the public, basically to stand before the congregation and recount and probably recant your sins. Is that a safe place?
So what happens if he sleeps with a girl again that day?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Will he come back next week and say, oh, I slept again? So this is my point.
Yeah.
That every one of us is struggling in one way or the other.
Yeah.
Not every one of it will be public.
Yeah.
And also,
should it be public? That's what I'm asking.
There is no grace in that.
You're sure about that? Because this is something I personally, you remember I've gone through that.
Did you feel Christ in it?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Did you feel God in what happened?
But I think for me...
Had you not repented to God?
Yeah. For me, my wife, I think, I don't know if she's recovered from, I can't speak for her, but it must have wounded her also in the process, because...
Someone said to me this week that nothing has spoiled marriage more than the church.
Whoa. That's a very heavy indictment.
This was his statement, for example. I'm just using this as an example that 10 years later, your wife has not recovered because of what the church made her do.
Yeah.
Between God and her sin had been forgiven.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of bringing her